Hey, Summit grads. This is David Stubblefield, and we've recorded this video with Mike Sherrard for you. We're focusing on Amendment 4 in Florida, but I want you to know there are 10 amendments on the ballots in 10 different states that are seeking to enshrine abortion as a state right. Those states are Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Maryland, Missouri, Montana, New York, Nebraska, Nevada, and South Dakota. So if you are in any of those states, this information is just as significant and vital to you as it is to those residents of Florida. But take this video, watch it, learn from it, be encouraged by it, and use it as you have conversations about the ballots in these states and as you fight for the life of the unborn and advocate for them. I hope you enjoy the conversation I'm having with Mike here. Thanks. Welcome, Mike Sherrard. Thank you for jumping on here really kind of last minute. I was just in Florida last week, right before Hurricane Milton came through, and I saw a commercial watching a sports game with my family for Amendment 4, and it infuriated me. It was an OBGYN doctor that looked just like the doctor from This Is Us, and he's making this heartfelt appeal to vote for Amendment 4. Otherwise, he would be prevented from providing life-saving care to his patients and could be threatened with jail for taking care of people. And I was so mad, recognized the propaganda right away, and thought, we've got to talk and get you to help inform our Summit graduates all over the country, particularly in Florida, because they've got a vote coming up. But laws like this, amendments like this, fights for amendments like this on both sides are happening in all kinds of states. Some already have happened and they're in place. Others are yet to happen. But thank you for joining us for the next few minutes to just help us inform Summit graduates and give them resources to think clearly on this, to ask great questions, and maybe be prepared not just to vote for themselves well and for their communities, but also talk to their neighbors and maybe persuade others to recognize this for the false propaganda, the lies that it is. Can you just kind of give us an introduction? I know you and Apologetics Inc. have been working really hard to read and understand Amendment 4 and working hard to inform Floridians about what's coming. Tell us about Amendment 4. What actually is it?
Yeah, so in, I think, 10 states right now, there are proposed amendments to the state constitution that, if passed in these states, it will mean that abortion is unrestricted up to birth. In some states like Florida, it will remove common sense laws like parental consent. These laws are all vague. They're written vaguely on purpose to provide as much interpretive space as can be possible, such that, again, the end result is abortion on demand. And in Florida, an amendment is put forward. And in Florida, you need 60% of the vote to pass this. When polling went out, it was at about 70% were in favor of voting yes. More recent polling is showing it's down right around that 60% threshold. So the movement to bring awareness to this issue is working. And that's why it's really important that we're talking about this, David. It's a good job, man. These laws are passing largely due to ignorance. Like in Ohio, for example, a similar legislation was passed, and 1 out of 4 evangelicals voted yes on it, the pro-abortion position. And they did so mostly because of ignorance. The exit polls showed that some of them were like, wait, what did I just vote for? I voted for the pro-abortion side, and they didn't know it because so many, even I'm sure some of grads now, or maybe this is the first time they're voting, but of course there's some that have voted before. And when you go to vote for, President Trump or Vice President Kamala this November, and you see there's a number of other things you have to vote for, or you can skip or whatnot. But these amendments, sometimes they're hard to make sense of what they're saying, and you read it and you go, wait, what am I? Yeah. What if I vote yes? What does that mean if I vote no? And these pro-abortion amendments are written like that on purpose. And so we've got to talk about this, David. So good job, man. We really got to bring awareness to this, because even if you're pro-choice, I think common sense would dictate you vote no on these abortion amendments because they're so radical.
Yeah, I even saw one discussion on, it was a fact-checking I don't know, little shtick from a local news channel on Amendment 4. And one of the things we're fact checking is it's vague and doesn't define terms. And the defense was, no amendment ever defines terms. I mean, that's the nature of amendments. They don't define terms because that's left up to the courts. The courts are the ones who define the terms. So viability. What does that mean? The one gentleman. So I think what I want to do is either I'm going to hyperlink some of these ads to this so graduates can look at it, or I might try to edit some of them in because it just boggles my mind. I want them to see it.
Hey, I'm Johnny, working with the Yes on 4 campaign. And here we have a new tool to combat misinformation. No law shall prohibit, penalize, delay, or restrict abortion before viability or when necessary to protect the patient's health, as determined by the patient's healthcare provider. This amendment does not change the legislature's constitutional authority to require notification to the parent or guardian before the minor has an abortion. What does viability mean? Great question. You're not a doctor, neither I. Maybe you are. But each pregnancy is different, and so is each person. What's viable to one is not viable to another, and therefore we need doctors and women making these decisions.
Okay, so let's go to common sense law then. And the fact that these amendments are so vague and brief, which it is not true, by the way, that amendments are supposed to be brief so that you can then battle legally for years after the fact to define terms. No, good law is going to be clear about its terms so that it's not bogged down in endless legal battles to define key terms. But of course, that is exactly what the pro-abortion side wants here, and on viability. So that comment of, I'm not a doctor and neither are you, we should let doctors do this. Well, current abortion law does leave determining viability to doctors. In fact, 2 doctors have to determine viability. And that's somewhat of a reasonable law because viability changes based on technology. So if you just arbitrarily say viability is at 28 weeks, well, you're going to have to constantly be moving that backwards because of technology. So leaving this in the hands of doctors is somewhat of a reasonable law, though if we wanted to dive in on is viability a justifiable reason to kill the unborn, I would still say no, but let's just leave that aside for a second, just to go to the common sense law nature here. Amendment 4 takes defining viability out of doctors' hands and places it in healthcare provider hands. And is healthcare provider defined and spelled out in this amendment? No, it's not. So healthcare provider could be the Planned Parenthood employee that now gets to define when viability is. This is just getting carried away. I got to slow down
I'm
here.
with you. I'm mad.
Really agitated because this is bad law. Regardless almost of pro-choice or pro-life, this is bad law. To think we should take viability and now put it in the hands of Planned Parenthood employees, nobody except extreme pro-abortionists think that's a good idea.
What's implied in here, and the way this gentleman made his argument, was that each pregnancy is different, and therefore viability means something different with each pregnancy, when he said we need to keep this in doctors' and women's hands, as if the woman, the mom in that situation, gets to define whether or not it's viable based on circumstances outside of medical concerns. Which is, that's what he seemed to be implying. At least you could read that into it.
Yeah, and again, he's wrong about him. If he was talking, you said you were in Florida. He's wrong about Amendment 4. It takes this out of doctors' hands and puts it into any healthcare professional's hands, which is, again, bad law.
Again, we've not defined who healthcare professionals are either.
Right.
So do you mind if I just kind of clip through some of these like 30-second commercials that I saw, and maybe that might be a good avenue to address some of the falsehoods that are being spread about this. And then if there's anything more that you feel like isn't addressed, I'd love for you to add that.
Yeah. And before we dive into that, maybe just get a little bit of context for Summit grads here, because I know I'm agitated from the get-go. Yeah. And I'm agitated because we live in a country where we have an avenue to seek the good of our neighbor through good legislation. One of the best things about our country is the fact that we have the opportunity for good law. If you travel the world you see the kind of oppression and lack of human flourishing that comes to people because their legal system and the legislative process is terrible, and bad laws reign, and people live in impoverished oppressed conditions because of bad law. The great heritage that we have as Americans is that's not our legal system. Yeah, there have been bad laws, but you can make good laws, and it's somewhat easy to do so. And here we have an opportunity to seek the good of our neighbor by ensuring that there is good legislation here, and people are straight up lying about this. And what will result is harm to women and children. And so I think my agitation is justified, but the motivation is not just anger over someone disagreeing with my worldview. It's an agitation based in love for my neighbor. So as we dive into this, Dave, and talk a little bit more about this, it is love that is driving this, driving the pro-life movement. Well, I shouldn't say that so broadly. How do I know the motivation of all people? It's what's driving me in Apologetics, Inc. It's the love of our neighbor to see that they live in a state that has good laws that lead to human flourishing.
Absolutely. Not just for the life of the unborn either. We know how abortion harms women and families. So the first one was this commercial by, it really was a doctor who looked just like the doctor from This Is Us. Just this sweet man, heartfelt concern, saying Florida's extreme abortion ban forces women to wait until the brink of death to get help. And it would send doctors to him like to jail for treating his patients. He encouraged us to limit governmental interference with abortion so government can't stop women from getting life-saving care.
It's the hardest conversation I have with patients, telling them that their baby won't make it. And now, because of Florida's extreme abortion ban, I also have to tell them I can't help. The ban forces women to wait until the brink of death to get care and could send doctors like me to prison just for treating my patients. That's terrifying. And it's why I'm voting yes on 4, to end the ban so government can't stop women from getting life-saving care.
They seem to be putting forth, and this doctor's heartfelt plea was that this amendment is going to keep me from saving women's lives. How is that not true?
Well, it's just not true. If doctors are fearing legal repercussions, maybe they are feeling that, but that's not because of the law. In fact, it's probably because of people like him lying about the law, making doctors feel afraid and making vulnerable women fearful that I can't go get the care that I need. There is no law in this country that prevents a doctor from administering life-saving care. And let me give you an example from the state of Texas. And I go to Texas because it has it's one of the most restrictive states on abortion. And there was a recent Supreme Court ruling, and this is the literal opening sentence from the ruling in Texas. Texas law permits a life-saving abortion. And this, by the way, is true in every single state that has restrictive abortion laws. Texas law permits a life-saving abortion. A physician cannot be fined or disciplined for performing an abortion when the physician exercising reasonable medical judgment concludes a pregnant woman has a life-threatening physical condition, and 2, that condition poses a risk of death or serious physical impairment unless an abortion is performed. So this is not only true in Texas, this is true in all of the states that have restrictive abortion laws. All of these states have exceptions for the life of the mother. And in these states, doctors will not be fined or disciplined or prosecuted for performing an abortion in a life-saving situation or when there is serious physical impairment that would result if the abortion does not take place. So this is just a lie. And again, going back to my agitation, these lies are keeping women from going to their doctor to receive the emergency life-saving medical procedures that are needed. And they're not going because people are lying to them, saying the doctors aren't going to do it anyways because they're just going to go to jail, and so are you. And that's wrong. Literally, the blood of these innocent people are on the hands of these pro-abortionists that are lying about all this.
Yeah. Ad 2 says, A woman or girl's raped and gets pregnant and is forced to have her attacker's baby. That's now the law in Florida. Government has no right putting anyone through that or making that decision for you.
It's an unimaginable trauma. A woman or girl is raped and gets pregnant. Then she's forced to have her attacker's baby. That's now the law in Florida. An extreme abortion ban with no real exception for rape. No matter where you stand on abortion, that goes too far. Government has no right putting anyone through that. Government has no right making that decision for you. Voting yes on 4 protects women and girls and stops government's cruel abortion ban.
Does Amendment 4 speak to rape at all as an exception or limit that?
It's just also false. Current Florida law already has exceptions for rape and incest. Amendment 4 does not change that. It just opens up abortion to abortion on demand in any situation. So that's just not true.
Yeah. Ad 3 says, it's this young African-American gentleman talking about this misinformation tool.
Does this initiative allow people who aren't doctors to provide an abortion? No. You would not go to your dentist to look at your brain's chemistry. So we're not going to go to other healthcare professionals for our abortion.
How does it open up the possibility for people who are not doctors to provide abortions?
Because it just says healthcare provider, but does not define what a healthcare provider is.
Got it.
So,
well, and now
for example,
with chemical abortions, pills,
right.
It could be given by Planned Parenthood.
You order it
and then all of a
online.
sudden-
You talk to some consultant over the phone that's an employee of this clinic. They mail it to you, and then you administer it yourself. And that's just not a good medical practice. That's not how we do medicine in the West in the United States.
Is it true that when you get this abortion pill, that you don't have to be under the care of a physician right now? That you can just get it in the mail, take it? And...
You can. I don't know the law in every state. And this is where this gets pretty murky because people are ordering these pills from across state lines, even out of the country. They're ordering them they're getting them from around the world. So Amendment 4 would put it such that if you got the abortion pill, it would have to come through a healthcare provider that technically you would be under their supervision. But again, it does not define what healthcare provider is. That does not mean doctor, and it opens the door. And so here's what happens. Let's say then what in practice, you have a bunch of non-doctors from Planned Parenthood administering abortions or the abortion pill. And then people want to say, that's wrong. You should not be allowed to do that. Well, now you have to fight this in courts.
In court.
And it's going to be long, and it's going to take a lot of money. And one thing is certainly true. There are more people investing their time and money in seeing that babies are killed in the womb than are protected. For example, to get this Amendment 4 passed, they raised in just a matter of weeks over $50 million to secure the signatures needed on the petition to get this on the ballot box. And it's just, so there's a ton of money being poured into this. And again, that's the strategy. Let's keep it vague. And then, we'll fight these battles in courts on the other side. Meanwhile, unrestricted abortion keeps occurring.
Does this initiative allow elective abortion up till 9 months or abortion after birth? Abortions that occur in the last trimester of pregnancy are extremely rare and usually due to extreme health circumstance of either the fetus or the mother. And additionally, an abortion after birth is called a murder. We do not legal homicide. No.
So to the point of unrestricted abortion, this gentleman said this is a lie, that it does. He said, does it allow elective abortion up till 9 months or abortion after birth? And he said, no, it does not. Is that true?
No, it certainly allows it because it says, and I'll read I've got it here somewhere. Where is it? It says the language of Amendment 4. The language here is similar in other states. So if you're listening to this and you're in Missouri or Colorado, this applies to you all almost exactly. But Amendment 4 is written, no law shall prohibit, penalize, delay, or restrict abortion before viability or when necessary to protect the patient's health, as determined by the health care provider. So what that's saying is abortion is allowed when necessary to protect patient's health. Patient's health is not defined.
Right.
What is health? Is it social health? Is it emotional health? Is it physical health? And what's the degree here? And again, the interpretation of health there is not determined by a doctor. It's simply determined by a healthcare provider. So that just opens the door wide open to, yes, this abortion was necessary because it was deemed that the woman's health was in jeopardy. But
I mean, could that be like mental health, emotional health, that kind of thing too? Yeah.
And not to discount things like mental health and the severity there, but it doesn't give any criteria to determine the severity of mental health between something that would catastrophically ruin your life versus a minor inconvenience or discomfort, and how you would even begin judging that is quite a task to undertake. The point being, though, this law does not try to solve any of that. So what in practice this means is a woman would be able to get an abortion as long as her healthcare provider said, yes, this is necessary for your health, which is vague and nebulous and not defined.
Does this initiative undo parental consent? No, actually, the healthcare provider is still required to notify before the procedure.
The last thing this gentleman said was that it does not undo parental consent. I'm assuming because it doesn't mention parental consent at all. And yet, would this amendment kind of trump what's on the laws already as far as parental consent being required?
Parental consent is already on the laws. It's already a part of current abortion law in Florida. This law wipes out all previous law.
Oh, okay.
And the new language is parental notification, which again, that's not the same thing as consent. So yes, this amendment wipes out consent, and the new statute is simply notification. It's very subtle and very slippery. If you're going to have parents get consent, they're obviously going to have to be notified. So Amendment 4 doesn't change the fact that parents have to be notified, but it changes the fact that parents have to give consent.
Yeah.
You see how radically different that is, of course. And what does notification mean? I mean, does it mean we gave you a phone call to let you know that your daughter is on the operating table right now? Or we just gave her a pill and she's walked out and taken it? I mean, that kind of notification.
We put a letter in the mail that you won't get till days later.
Right. It's not specified. So this is, again, just slippery. It's cunning. It's wickedly evil because, it's technically true. This Amendment 4 does not change the fact that parents have to be notified. Parents had to be notified before, but parents had to give consent. So this would make, in the state of Florida, the only medical procedure a minor could undergo without getting parental consent. Again, it's radical. It's way too radical.
I remember the doctor handing me a baby boy that was blue, and I just held him because he was so cold. Due to the abortion ban, I was being forced to carry the baby from 23 weeks all the way to 37 weeks, and knowing that my son was going to die.
Having to watch your wife be in pain and continue to tell her to keep going, that everything's gonna be okay, knowing it's not. That was the hardest thing.
Government had no right to do that to my family. This ban is torture.
This is something consistent in all these ads too. Government doesn't have the right. Government doesn't have the right to do that to my family. This ban is torture. How would you respond to that ad?
Well, one, there's the assumption here that the pain that is experienced through losing a child would go away if that child could have been killed before he or she was born. It's a really big assumption. And there's numerous stories that show that's not the case. I'm sure you'd have the same experience that I do. Me and my wife have never experienced miscarriage, but we have friends that have, and they deeply grieve that. And so wrapped up in this assumption is if the government would just allow us to kill our child before they're born, we wouldn't have to suffer the emotional, the psychological pain of holding a child after born and died. And that's just a really big assumption that I don't think is based in reality.
I've been with couples who have had this exact situation, actually counseled them on the front end when the doctors were encouraging the abortion. And they saw the pregnancy to birth. The couple that I was with, it wasn't easy, period. It can't be. It's not easy. But giving birth to that beautiful little boy and holding him and spending time with him, saying goodbye to him, they asked if I wanted to hold him, and I did, and we just got to notice his features and how beautifully and wonderfully made he was, and how much he looked like his dad. And there was something actually healing about that. It didn't take any of the pain away, but there was some closure that you don't get otherwise. You just kind of, it doesn't take it away. You're 100% right.
Losing a child's traumatic, and there's no way to dance around that. Losing a child is traumatic. But why should we believe that having the right to kill the child before it's born will lessen that trauma?
Yeah.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Now,
Well,
to the
kill
point of
kill
whether...
the child before it dies. I mean, it wasn't dead yet.
Right.
It
So,
hadn't
but
died.
to this point of government should not interfere, I would agree that government should not interfere if abortion is no more different than removing a tumor or a clump of cells. But
Right.
if the unborn are distinct, living, whole human beings, the science of embryology shows us, and if there is no good philosophical reason to think that though they are different from us, they are still have the same moral worth as you and I, well, then the government surely should be involved in protecting the most vulnerable among us. So, this is why I'm really grateful that Summit, every year, they make abortion an issue that the students hear, whether it's Scott Klusendorf or Megan Allman. Usually those are the two that are doing it to prevent the pro-life case. Because if the unborn aren't distinct, living, and whole human beings that possess the same moral worth as you and I, well, the government should get the heck out of this. And the only way they should regulate this is to ensure that the abortion practice is done well in line with other medical procedures in this country. But if the unborn have the same moral worth as we do, then it's the government's business to protect the most vulnerable among us.
When I saw the tumor on the MRI, my first thought was, am I going to be able to see my daughter again? The doctors knew if I did not end my pregnancy, I would lose my baby, I would lose my life, and my daughter would lose her mom. Florida has now banned abortion, even in cases like mine. Amendment 4 is going to protect women like me. We have to vote yes.
Ad 5 talks about this woman, Caroline, who in the past was diagnosed with a brain cancer. And while she was pregnant with her second child, the doctors knew that if she didn't end her pregnancy, she would lose the baby, her life, and then her first daughter would lose her mom. Her claim is that Florida has now banned abortions in cases like hers. And we've already addressed this, but Amendment 4 is going to protect women like her.
And that's, in a situation. Now, let's be careful with some of this. There is certainly the possibility that there become really hard cases here where it's not clear what the application of the law is. And I could, for example, see an instance where maybe in a situation like that, maybe a doctor goes, well, wait, I don't know how to apply this. But there's a way for that doctor to get an answer to this, right? It's not like one doctor says it and it's over. There's a way to get an answer to this. And then again, one of the things we have to be careful about here, and of course, this is what the pro-abortion side is going to do, is it's going to take the most extreme hard case and try to universalize that and make that the basis for the law, which that's not the case. And it could be that we learned that, oh my gosh, there's a number of women that because of this particular instance are being denied care. Well, you can make an exception for that then in legislation and still then prevent the vast number of abortions that occur for reasons other than those extreme cases.
Yeah. And it sounds like, as we talked about before, if this doctor's not sure what to do and multiple doctors confer and they come to the conclusion that in order to save this woman's life, we need to end this pregnancy, that seems to fall under the clause you mentioned was in Texas already, one of the most restrictive as far as abortion goes. Ad 6 is just pretty simple. It says an extreme ban with no exceptions, not for health, not even for rape. Government gets to decide, not you. That's the fear tactic. What do you do if you're in Florida? You've got a little bit of time left before people go to the polls to vote on this. What do you do? What do we do about this information? There's this propaganda that's being promoted. It's being funded. And here I am, just a resident, a neighbor, a family member, a friend. I have one vote to cast. Hopefully our Summit graduates are going to be thoughtful. I mean, maybe we should encourage them to go read the amendment, actually.
Yeah.
Read what it says. Consider what we've said in light of what it actually
very
says.
Short. They're very short.
And very vague. So think about terms. What do you mean by that? Think about your Summit questions. But is there anything more they can do?
That goes a long way. You becoming informed yourself. If you're in one of these 10 states, go see what's on the ballot this November and read it and analyze it so that you understand it well. And when you speak, you aren't speaking from a position of ignorance. You're speaking from a position of knowledge. That will put you in a state of mind that allows you to be more loving and respectful when you talk to somebody. And you just need to bring it up. Hey, have you heard about this amendment? What do you think about it? And see if they are knowledgeable about it, or if they have no idea, haven't heard about it for the first time, which is crazy. This is what we're finding in Florida. A lot of people just still have no idea what's going on. Now, President Trump did us a favor. He flip-flopped on this issue. So a month or so ago, it came out that he was going to vote yes on Amendment 4. And the pro-life crowd came out and said, what are you doing? This is a betrayal. What in the world? And Apologetics Inc., we were involved in this. We've been creating some videos to raise awareness to Amendment 4 in Florida. And what we found out was when Trump did this flip-flop, a lot of people said, we had no idea what was going on there in Florida. So Trump did us a favor by bringing some awareness to this, but we're still finding a number of people that don't know this is on the ballot box. So how can Summit grads help? Just get involved in conversation and just say, nope, first do what you said, read the amendment, and then just ask your friends, hey, what do you think about this proposed amendment in Florida? What do you think about Amendment 4? Do you think it's a good idea? And then hear what they have to say. And then you can offer the talking points about its vagueness. And in Florida, there's a handful of things that are really working. So again, when we began this, I talked about when polling began, it was around 70% in favor of Amendment 4 voting yes. It's now down around the 60% threshold, which is what it needs to pass, which again is not good. We want this thing defeated, vote no. But what's changing people's minds is when they learn that Amendment 4 will allow for late-term abortions after the child can feel pain. And it's remarkable how early the child can feel pain. One of our colleagues, Jim Huda, who's a world-renowned perinatal cardiologist, this guy consults around the world and performs heart surgery on children in the womb. And he says pain can be felt as early as 7 weeks. But certainly in this late-term category, extreme pain felt throughout the body in the unborn child. And so when people learn that Amendment 4 allows for late-term abortions where the unborn child can feel pain, that causes them to vote no. When they learn that this removes parental consent, people change their mind on this. And even if they lean pro-choice to some degree, they go, well, that's a terrible law. We can't have 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds going to get abortion without their parents' consent. The expansion of abortion care to non-doctors, that point is changing people's mind on Amendment 4. And the last piece, this is pretty interesting, the irony here and the bold-faced lying of the government should not be involved in this. this opens the door for taxpayer-funded abortions. This is what's happening in Michigan right now. Again, where similar legislation was passed, and now the same lawyers that wrote these laws, the ones, for example, that wrote the law in Florida, Amendment 4, they're now suing the government to make the government pay for taxpayer-funded abortions. So that's where this goes. And the law in Colorado the amendment in Colorado explicitly states that taxpayer funds can be used to fund abortion. So this whole the government should stay out of it is just a flat out lie. It's government should be involved in paying for these abortions now. So in Florida, when people learn those four things, the fact that the baby can feel pain, the expansion of abortion care to non-doctors, the removal of parental consent, and the possibility of taxpayer funds for abortion, people in Florida are changing their mind. So you can just bring those 4 points up with people.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to get into a full-fledged debate on the morality of abortion, because again, this law is so bad that even if you lean towards pro-choice legislation, you'll go, well, that at least can't be the law of our land. And surely it can't be enshrined into our state constitution. Which that's another thing that people just have to realize. This isn't just a law or a statute. This is now being enshrined into the state constitution. So getting an amendment taking off the Constitution is really, really hard. And I think if I remember this right, I was talking with Eric Dellenbach, who runs the Governor DeSantis' Faith and Community Initiative. I think he had said in Florida's history, there had only been one amendment that once it was put on, added to the state constitution, was removed. So it's a really hard process to get an amendment taken off. So just all of these reasons on why this is just bad law. They're trying to force this in. They're doing it through vagueness. We're hoping on ignorance because they know churches aren't going to talk about this. So we just got to create awareness to this. And then again on that, if you have any influence to lovingly encourage your pastor, encourage him to talk on abortion. I was a pastor for 11 years, and I know firsthand all of the reasons why not to speak on this, but I also know the goodness that comes from speaking on this, especially when you do this with gentleness and respect, biblically grounded, but using science and philosophy as you're taught at Summit. People appreciate this, and those that are affected by abortion don't feel like they have to live in shame, because if their pastor is talking about it, well, I can open up and I can talk about it. And so to that end, encourage your pastor. And we at Apologetics Inc. created videos that are short, that even if your pastor doesn't want to give a whole sermon, he can show one of these videos that in 2 minutes or less explain the problems with Amendment 4 and offer a convincing pro-life position. Go check them out. You can download them for free at apologetics.org/pro-life. And we partnered with LTI and Scott Klusendorf on these videos, and I think they're fantastic.
Oh, fantastic. So those 4 main points, the idea of elective abortions, late-term abortions, is because they don't define health, and it falls under the paradigm of this healthcare provider rather than a doctor or medical professional.
Right.
The other one was what was the other 3?
Taxpayer funding.
Taxpayer funding, and that is because where's the loophole to get taxpayer funding? The whole healthcare provider.
It just opens the door for this now, and that's what's being pursued in Michigan. So we'll wait to see the outcome there in Michigan, but this just opens the door for that. So taxpayer funds, and again, it's on the ballot in Colorado. Part of the amendment explicitly calls for the use of taxpayer funds on abortion.
Yeah.
Parental consent, the removal
and it's because
of that,
it doesn't use the word consent at all. It just says
it uses the word notification, right? And the expansion of abortion to non-doctors.
Yeah, healthcare provider. Okay. All right. Well, Mike, thank you so much. We'll make sure to get this to Summit grads here at this newsletter at the end of October. And is there anything else you would encourage them with or admonish them to do before we go?
Nah, just speak up, speak out. What we're seeing is when more people learn the truth about these amendments, they change their mind. And if you've been to Summit and you've heard a convincing pro-life message, you know why. Most people don't ever hear this truth presented with reason and respect, this truth and love, the Summit way of doing it. And love does not preclude being angry to some degree, but we don't move forward out of pure spite or hatred of another.
Yeah.
Our anger needs to be tethered to love and for one another.
So many of the people that our Summit grads are going to talk to, they're not your enemy. They're ignorant, or they're
That's
deceived.
exactly right.
That's
right.
Don't go on the attack, but persuade.
That's right.
Also, thank you, because so much of what I'm trying to do here at some grad support is, in Summit during the TUIC student conference, we talk about truth and relationship. Well, the translation of that for when they're a graduate is you're not alone and you're not crazy. So you're not alone. Apologetics Inc. has your back. Summit, we want to help you, support you, encourage you, and then you're not crazy. This law is not good law. And so, yeah.
And hit me up if y'all need anything. Sherrard@apologetics.org. If you have a question, you think I was wrong about something on this, let me know. Tell me maybe I was. I don't think I was, but that's the Summit way, right? Push back, challenge,
Absolutely.
and together let's pursue truth. So yeah, use these videos. Our most recent one is Tony Dungy, Super Bowl winning coach of the Indianapolis Colts. He did a video with us, and it's fantastic. So help us get the word out, because when people are learning the truth on this, they're changing their minds.
Yeah. And Tony lives in Tampa, right? Or he has a house in Tampa anyway, I think.
I think so. I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but he was the coach of the Tampa Bay Bucks for years.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Mike, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Anytime, man.